Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank all of you for attending today's webinar. Full disclosure, I actually had a conflict this week, and so this particular webinar is actually recorded a couple of days ago, but because I'm on the road, but I am available at the end live for questions, and of course this webinar is essentially live. It's recorded live, and I'll be doing a live demo at the same time, just as I would have done had I not had that conflict. So let me just proceed here with a little bit of background on Phoenix Software. We have been in business since 1978, and our primary focus is mainframes and mainframe software for ZOS, ZVSC, and ZVM. Now, at the size of our company, we're small compared to large companies like IBM or something like that. We have two locations, one in LA and one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they back each other up for DR. We are privately held, so we are not under the sorts of pressures that publicly held companies are, answering to shareholders with quarterly profit demands and that sort of thing. All of our developers are living and working in the United States. We have no part of our operation outsourced. Our customers are run the gambit from Fortune 1 all the way down to really mom and pop businesses almost, if you will. So we have a wide range of customers, and we implement best practice security policies to ensure customer data and information are protected. Now, one of the things that I want to really focus on is the fact that we are committed to leveraging the latest hardware and software technology. In our environment right now, we're running ZOS 2.2 and 2.3, actually. It's been announced, I can tell you that. And we are running it on a Z13S machine. So it's the latest hardware, the latest software, even the operating system you don't have yet. And we do this so that we can leverage the latest technology for these various reasons right here. We care about performance a lot, and the latest technology is usually better performing. We also care about reducing customer costs, and the reason why these later technologies innovate is exactly that, to try to reduce customer costs. So generally speaking, if you leverage that latest technology, you're assisting your customers in doing exactly that. We do care deeply about the ZOS platform. There's a lot of competition from other platforms, and a lot of it has to do with them using newer technologies and newer technology models that companies would like to be able to use in their application development and things of that nature. And so leveraging the latest technology on ZOS helps our platform compete against these emerging alternatives and keep our platform viable. And lastly, of course, technology is just plain cool. We're just geeks at heart, I guess, and we just love to do it. So this is these are the reasons that we really focus so much on this. I did want to point out that our support is 5 out of 5 all the time. We have governments and large financial institutions and that sort of thing where they are absolutely required to rate our support every year, and we always get fabulous ratings from them, so we really appreciate that. Also, we deliver annual releases with significant new function in each release. We don't believe in cash cows. And I did mention we're running ZOS 2.3. We're always ready for the customer ESP. That is our GA, our internal GA date for all of our code. So just to talk about technology, these are some of the things, and I'm not going to go through this whole chart by any means. I want to save time for the actual demo. But we have taken a leadership role for over a decade and maybe even longer, leveraging technologies that others have not been leveraging. There's always laggards, and we're not them. We are the trailblazers, in many cases, bleeding edge, if you will. And you would think that some of these technologies, since they emerged, they come from IBM, that IBM would be among the first to leverage them, but that's actually not the case. IBM oftentimes is among the last to leverage some of these things. So we do that. We're proud of it. And some of the bigger ones, you know, obviously 64-bit and large data set support, zip redirection, which we'll talk a little bit more about, EAV support, so that's, you know, the large DASD, the use of advanced channel programs, including ZHPF, and just on and on. There's a lot of things we're doing. And then, you know, most recently we've leveraged the vector instructions on our Z13S, so that really does have the potential to make a lot of things quite fast. We've found some really great uses for it in EJES and just, you know, made what was already much, much faster than any competitor even faster. So the differential there is almost insurmountable. We do focus on providing the best possible user experience. And again, I don't want to go through everything on here. There's a lot of words. You can get a hold of this if you really want to read through it all. But we do have robust functionality, and of course, every software product makes that claim. But you know, our customers, and we have a lot of customers that have transitioned from other products, tell us that we're on the right track, that we're doing more than our competitors, and we really are happy to get that feedback and happy to keep innovating. Interface consistency is very important to us. Rather than allowing newer functions to operate in ever-changing ways and keeping an absolute strict upward compatibility model, we sometimes make minor adjustments in order to try to keep the interface as consistent as possible for new users to the product. The goal is that if you know how to use one panel, you know how to use them all, and you're not having to relearn for every different panel just because it was written 10 years before the other one. This non-textual heuristics, this is important for 3270 users, and we're really going to be talking today about JES Web. So I'm going to sort of skip over that, but we do know a lot about 3270, and we do a lot in that space as far as highlighting things that other products have trouble with. And lastly, the principle of least astonishment. We try to adhere to that principle. It's something that was first talked about back in the 80s. And basically it just means that if you try to do something, it ought to behave in the manner that you expected it to, and not some off-the-wall way. And we don't redefine commands that you're used to using or anything like that. Everything, we try to make it as smooth and as integrated with the surrounding environment as we can. And for us, it's a matter of pride. We are deeply involved in the mainframe community. I am one of the MDS program managers at Share, and so, you know, our customers are our friends. And anything less than excellence, that would be quite embarrassing. I did want to briefly talk about the benefits of zip redirection. That was one of our big efforts early on, or back at 2005 or 7, whenever that was. And there are benefits to it. Moving work to zip, it has the potential to lower your software bills, for one thing, particularly if you are the kind of customer, and we have many who are, who experience their peak monthly rolling 4-hour averages during the day, during peak daytime use, when people come in, you know, maybe 11 a.m. before lunch and then maybe 1 or 2 p.m. after lunch. Those are the two big peaks in many shops. So anything that's interactively used or used even scripted that can offload to zip can help you save on your software bills. But beyond that, there are also technological reasons for moving to zip. One of them is the fact that zips oftentimes are underutilized. So you have more uninterrupted use of that processor, and so you get better cache utilization and things of that nature. And also, just by moving something onto the zip, you are freeing up the general CPs to run other work that isn't zip enabled. So there are a lot of benefits there, and this little pictorial I have here on the side sort of shows the way this works for an ISPF user. The individual presses enter, and the transaction begins. And of course, it runs on a CP briefly because ISPF only runs on a CP, and it reads in the input and whatever sorts of things, and then eventually returns back to EJES, which is running on the zip. So EJES puts itself back on the zip, and then effectively runs on the zip for the duration of the transaction. It's not always true, but it's by and large very true, and that includes doing I/O, even doing I/O to spool, which is something that we do that many other vendors and software vendors, including IBM, do not do. Most products that need to do I/O need to return to the CP to do I/O. But we can do it right from the zip because we have our own proprietary I/O driver, and so that keeps us on the zip, keeps the cache utilization high, keeps down the overhead of transitioning back and forth between these engines. And when it's all done, then it goes back to the CP with the response to the user. ISPF then displays that to the user, and the transaction ends. So we have seen upwards of a 94% offload for ISPF users, and we're really quite proud of that. That's a huge, huge number for something that's used interactively under ISPF. Another thing that we do, our client-server request model is somewhat unique. This is a picture of sort of a standard one, where you have all these requests on one side, and each of the requests sends its own individual request through some sort of a network, whether it's coupling, CTC, or wherever it's going, over to a remote side, and then the remote side has various units of work to respond to those requests. Now, most of those requests, in terms of the kind of data that we process, are for exactly the same data. I mean, you're searching job data, for example. Well, so each and every one of these requests is independently gathering that information and passing it back. So what we do in our model is we have optimized this dramatically so that we have a local server as well as a remote server, and the requests are actually made from the end users to the local server. And then we maintain these result sets, for example, job data. And if the result set is out of date, it needs an update, then we would send only a single request over to the remote side, where we would gather that information, update the result set on the remote side, send back only the changed pages to the originating side, and then free up all of these users to now process that result set. And so what this does is provide dramatic CPU savings with no observable delay, especially for larger installations. The more concurrent requests you have, the better this performs. So this is we call this the EJES solar system. It basically shows all the various ways in which you can invoke EJES. And since I'm not talking about EJES in general, I'm not going to go over all of these things. But I will tell you that there are we do more than anyone, and one of our competitive things is to put up big red X's through the ones that whoever the competitor is does not support. But today we're going to be focusing on JES Web. That's this one down here at the bottom, and I'm going to get into that right now. So what is JES Web? Well, it's the most visible and tangible result of our ZOS interface modernization strategy. So what it is today is a browser-based interface to EJES. It's implemented in Java on the mainframe and JavaScript in the browser. So originally we intended just to create an interface for users that were uncomfortable navigating traditional 3270. And, that probably would have been a little bit of a dumbed-down interface. But what's ended up happening is it's become so powerful that now even power users are using it. And, we have one here in California, a government installation in California, where they have literally hundreds of users, and many of them are power users that were used to 3270 that are now using JES Web quite happily. And because there are capabilities in JES Web and ways of using it, things that are more friendly, that you don't have to remember a lot of commands and things like that. And so there are a lot of benefits, and also it does provide additional capabilities, which we'll talk a little bit about. The REST API backing this technology It does provide a framework for the creation of Eclipse plugins, mobile apps, other web services clients. It turns out that Eclipse has a built-in browser, and we run just fine in there. And so far, most customers have been perfectly happy with that and haven't asked for an actual official plugin. But we're more than happy to do that, as soon as we get a request for it. And this is a little bit about the history of our strategy. We started this, actually it says 2013, but I think we really started late 2012, and then in 2013 we really started writing the code. So we joined a lot of other like-minded, responsible software vendors who are basically trying to, modernize ZOS and make it more competitive for people that are not comfortable with 3270 interfaces and JCL and all those sorts of things. And one of the good things about Java is that on the mainframe, it's been given highly preferential treatment, both in terms of the hardware design and the software design and customer terms and conditions. For example, Java runs on your zip, and that runs without increasing your licensing costs. So there's no reason to believe that trend would not continue, and so ZOS Java is a very solid language, a platform choice. It has good investment protection for us and for customers. And I was there in March 2015 when Ross Murray of IBM asserted at Share during his keynote that Java runs better on Z than any other platform in the world. And I just wanted to put in a plug for what IBM has done, because we agree with that. We run Java on other platforms as well, and ZOS Java is absolutely the best. And things have only improved since that time, especially with Z13 and Java 8. So here is the structure of JES Web. Now, you can tell I'm a mainframe guy because I put the mainframe at the top. Probably the client guy, if he had put this slide together, he would have put the browser at the top and the mainframe at the bottom. But anyway, this is just the way I think. So. But I will talk about it from the bottom up. So you have native browser code, and that browser could be anything, right? Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, Opera, Safari, whatever. We support them all. And then we have a thing called jQuery that we use that is a layer that hides the differences between various browsers. Doesn't hide all the differences, but it hides the vast majority of the differences, and it makes it much easier to program. So, anybody doing web development, I highly recommend jQuery. And then, so what we do is we use AJAX transactions, and they are HTML with a JSON payload, and that is what we send to and receive from our REST API, the JES Web Service that's sitting on the mainframe. So that part is all really JES Web right there. This here is JES Web. Everything above that is the JES base. By the way, JES Web comes with the JES base, so it's not a cost option. All right, we get that question all the time, so I just want to make it clear right here. So in the JES API, we have the Java API here, which anyone can leverage. It's so powerful that we're able to build JES Web on it. So it's really got a lot of capability. Then the Java API then in turn has internal to it a JNI layer, Java Native Interface, which is written in C++, and then that in turn calls the native JES API, which, again, anyone can call. You could call that an assembler, COBOL, DO1, whatever you want. And it has all the same capabilities, right? This is a stack. So you could build JES Web directly on this if you didn't want to go through Java. But, I would recommend this because it's a lot friendlier than just trying to call this an assembler and trying to build a web app from it. But you can do it. And then, of course, the JES base. And that is the base code there that all runs on zip as well. So really the Java part and the base are all running on the zip. And just this thin layer here, the API and this JNI, is where it would not run on the zip. So the characteristics of JES Web, for starters, the performance objective, no sacrifice. That was really important to me. I'm been a mainframe bigot forever, and I've always been upset with this double standard that existed, where mainframes had to have sub-second response or heads will roll, And yet, when somebody deploys a web-based interface to something, it's okay if the little spinner is spinning. It's all right. Give it a couple of seconds and maybe it'll fill the screen in. Well, I don't like that. And so we wanted to make sure that with JES Web, we got that we could replicate as closely as possible the same experience that is enjoyed by 3270 users, while at the same time adding the power of the modern GUI web interface. And we've done that. And you could see some of these average refresh times in our environments. And, like the status display, you're looking at, 0.185 total time in our environment. And again, our environment is Z13S with an ICF, zip, IFL, OS Express 5, and this is, connected to, these are our PCs running Core i7, Microsoft 64-bit Windows 10, probably very much like what you have. So we do support full mainframe find capabilities. It's an ultra-thin client model. That is how we get that performance. We don't try to move too much data or processing to the workstation. We let the mainframe do what it does best. Sorting, filtering, searching, all that kind of work is done on the mainframe. Where the data resides, that's data co-location. You always hear about that? That's what we're doing. And the client is just a slick interface that requests and views the results of those data manipulations. Classic context menus, I shouldn't even have to put that in because that's like the most basic thing you would think every GUI does. But it turns out that at least one of our competitors doesn't really do it that way, and so we add that in. It's a differentiator. Time-oriented log browsers and download as text or PDF. I'll demonstrate some of that later, so I won't spend a lot of time. And I also won't spend too much time here except to point out that, again, when you look at what some of the competitors are doing, you wonder who's writing this code. In one case, they're dividing. You want to go browse something, they divide it up into pages of like 2,000 lines. And then they can only manage that 2,000 lines. You scroll up and down, and you're just within that 2,000 lines. And if you want to go beyond that, you have to choose another page. And you either go forward or backward through the pages, or you can select the page by number. But it is just so hokey and very compared to what you would see in JES Web, which is just a nice, consistent, linear type representation, just like you'd expect from any product, whether it was a native Windows app or a web app or whatever. So, this is just an example of how we've made a lot of good choices. We know we have, and the customers that are using this are very, very pleased indeed. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and switch to my live demo, which somebody told me if I don't hit escape on here, the demo doesn't really show up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to start up Firefox. I don't actually run Chrome right now on this machine, but that's a lot of people are using that, and JES Web works great in Chrome as well. So for starters, you can see right here JES 2 and JES 3. So I'm going to open up a JES 2. And there's my JES 2. And then I'm going to also open up a JES 3 just to show that we support, fully support both JESs here, just as we do in our 3270 interfaces. Okay? And you notice this one jumped into the log first, and this one jumped to the status display first. Well, why is that? Well, because you can indicate what you would like your initial display to be. And I'm thinking that's this, default display. Yeah. So in here I've got it set to status, but you could set it to anything. And it's just automatic. Any whatever, if you're really more of you want to look on the log type person initially, then set that up. The default is status. Okay. And then one more way to get into JES Web, just to make the point, because we get the question all the time. If you have ZOSMF, you can actually create a link there, and then from there you can click on that link, and that again takes you into JES Web from ZOSMF. So you can basically integrate it at that level. Now we don't actually integrate in these tabs here. We would prefer not to, because our interface is so much more powerful than that. this becomes really just a half duplex thing, and you have to choose the tab you want to work with. You don't have multiple tabs. You can't have multiple windows, and it gets it's. I know IBM's working on that, trying to maybe improve this interface a little bit, but so at the moment we're just really consider ourselves to be towering above that in terms of our UI here. So all right, one of the things is a lot of people always say, well, how do I find out how this help work? Well, we have the JES Web user guide directly as part of the product, as well as all of the other JES references. They're all in there. The JES reference, messages, release information, all the main books are there. And then if you have something, you can look stuff up in here. One of my favorite charts to use is the one where it talks about the keyboard map, because there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts. And once you know about this keyboard map and you start playing with these shortcuts, you can really become a power user pretty quickly in JES Web. It's really great. The other thing you can do there is if you get an error message, let's say, I'll put in a bad command like ABCDE. And that says, hey, the command entered is not recognized here. This is actually an JES message. It's the JES API putting that out, because that command was passed through to JES. If I click on that message, it takes me right into the JES messages book, right to that message. So you have that kind of capability there. So we've definitely integrated the help quite well into the product here. I talked a little bit about the default display, page navigation. So a lot of the things you'd expect to be there are there. And let me just, if you hit end, you're going down to the end. If you hit, I've got this open here. Yeah, going down to the end. If you hit home, you're popping back up to the top. You can go half pages, whole pages. You can, of course, just drag and drop this. You can scroll this way. You can move one line at a time, kind of thing. All sorts of all the sorts of navigation that you are used to having, you have there. And I'm going to take off I just took off my filtering there, so you can see there's more running out here than just those few jobs that I was showing. And same over here. If I go here, the status in JES 3. And, we have a whole bunch of jobs running out there. So there's plenty for me to play with over here. I am demoing right here, by the way, mouse wheel support. You can't see me doing that, but that is what I'm doing. So I'm scrolling my little mouse wheel, and it is working. We do have full attention support here, and that's pretty cool. It's really cool, in fact. And I'm going to see if I can demo it. Sometimes it runs so fast that I have trouble actually making it happen. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a find. And the way you would do a find in JES Web is you would just type F, and it pops open a little find window. And then right in there you would put the very same kind of string that you would put if you were doing an ISPF thing. So if I said IBM Systems Magazine, did a find for that, and tried to hit attention here, I could stop it. It says, oh, the find was terminated near that, right? So not only does JES do this in 3270, which is a feat in itself, many products require you to set find limits and crazy things like that. You only search 5,000 lines at a time, or if you want to search more than that, then you would up your limit, and then you can't break out of it. When it's running, if you break out of it, you basically break out of the whole product. So we support that in 3270, and as you can see here, we also support it in web. So these are technologies that are not easy to come by. That's part of the reason why I wanted to demo it here for you today. Now we do have all the traditional sort of bottom scroll mode. You can see this is in bottom scroll mode now, and all that means is if something appears on the log, then it's going to keep repositioning to the bottom. And I did just demonstrate how to issue a command there. So the very same demo is showing multiple things at once. So, and that's great. If you're watching a job grow or something like that, you can just keep seeing the most recent lines added to it. You don't have to keep trying to scroll forward. So it keeps you at the bottom without issuing any commands other than just pressing enter. Tabular selections. You have the ability, of course, to select multiple lines like this, or discontiguous, by pressing Control. All the same sorts of things that you would ordinarily expect to see. You can also do it from the keyboard. So if you are more of a keyboard-centric kind of a user, I think it's Alt-Shift that gets me in there. No, it must be Control down. There it is. And then this little yellow thing here moves, and from there you can, you can do everything from the keyboard. You can do all of those selections I just showed, plus even double clicking, because when you press Enter on the keyboard, you are in effect clicking, and if you do a double enter, then you're double clicking. So, that one doesn't happen to have any data in it. That was a bad suggestion, bad example. I'll do this one. Yeah, that works fine. So if I were to double click on that guy like that, then I would get, if I was in that keyboard mode, I would get that. There we go. Double click on that, and then it opens it up. Right? So basically you could do everything from the keyboard that you can do from the mouse. You have these menus up here, and you can see that every single display in EJES is here. There are no missing displays in EJES Web. It's not like we have to invest a lot of developer time to do it, because the way that our product works, it just automatically works. The way our API works, once we add a new display to the product, it just appears there, and the API exploiter does not really have to worry about it. And all the pop-up menus and everything, that's all part of the API as well. So if I do a right-click here, and you can see, again, we talked about the context menu, and all these choices, these are all things that are provided by our API. It's things that you would be doing in EJES as a 3270 user. The difference is the way it's being displayed to you. You don't have to remember these commands, right? So browse obviously is pretty easy. Normally that's B, or you just double click. But some of these may be a little more esoteric, and you may not be used to doing them all. And so, particularly for new users, that's pretty helpful. But having said that, even if you are a 3270 user and you're used to it and you want to use those commands, that's fine. Absolutely, you can. For example, here I've selected this line. If I type colon, now it wants me to put a line command in there, and any EJES line command would work. So if I do $B, then I am browsing this guy. Okay. So, and this is XDC. That's what we use for debugging. So I guess I just gave a free plug to our buddies over at Cole Software. Okay, what else do we have on here? I just talked about line commands there, the right click or the result. You saw that the results come up in a pop-up for any commands that you issue. So if I did a display command against this guy, for example, then that translates into an operator command, and there you see the results pop up here. Also, all the results of everything are being captured the whole time in the U-log. So if you do go over to the U-log, you can see the results of all of the commands, whichever ones you issued or within this session. Let me, yeah, there we go. I got to make sure I have my filtering. So speaking of filtering, I'm going to go ahead and demo that right now. I'm going to do it on status here. So there's primary selection criteria, and there's additional selection criteria. There are meta filters. So primary selections, that's what you're used to. And maybe if you're an EJES user, you're used to this, seeing many job names, many owner IDs, origins, job classes. You have multiples, and these are all ORed. So that if you put in, job name has to start with E or A, that would be ORed. And then right here, you're ANDing between these choices. So in this case, that's the user ID I logged on with. Now, I can enable or disable that just by hitting this one key, P. And P is what happens to map to the Same command on the mainframe when you want to set primary selections. But all you're really doing there is toggling this. For meta filters, that is more complex filtering, where maybe you want to, I'm going to do this, look for everything that starts, all the max comps that start with AB asterisk, or, and then add one, max comps that start with JCL errors. And go ahead and accept that. So now I've got all, it doesn't look like we have any JCL errors out there right now, but you are seeing abends. And I can toggle all that. So I've got, when I'm in the meta filters, right now I'm saying I want to show only the matching rows. Maybe I want to show only the non-matching rows, in which case those are the ones that are not abbending or JCL errors. Or maybe I want to colorize only the matching rows. So in this case, if I scroll forward, we should hopefully see, yeah, there you go. You see they've been colorized. So you get this heuristic. You can see them then in context, but yet they're being highlighted in a way that's quite user-friendly. Now, I could take this, and I can save that, go into Manage Meta Filters. That's the default one I just set up. I can also add a new set. So I can create another set, and this one, let's say I want to search for job names that start with, let's say, S. Okay, just as a simple thing. Obviously, they can be a lot more complex. And I'm going to call this S jobs. Let's say jobs that start with S. Okay, and I'm going to say I'm going to accept that. And now I've got both of these, S jobs and default out there. And there's no limit to how many of these you can have. So if I say I want to use S jobs, so now it's only going to show the jobs that start with S. And if I want to go back in and say, okay, now I want to use default, and then it'll go back to that thing we were doing with the colorizing these. So you can set up a lot of very complex things there and really take advantage of all that. A big focus has been column arrangement. Now, as you would expect, you can go in here and you can actually move columns around with drag and drop. It's pretty slick. Like if I wanted to take position out there and take max comp out and leave them out, they're out permanently unless I add them back in. Or when I add them, I can add them in wherever I want. When I say accept, I've just rearranged the display. Okay, I left something out, I moved something around. But you can also just literally drag and drop anywhere you like. So maybe I prefer owner to be right there. And there it goes. It just moves owner. So, I mean, it could not be simpler. And this is some of the stuff that people really, really like, even if they are traditionally 3270 users. And by the way, we've run into some 3270 users that are forced to 24 by 80. So, by corporate edict. So this gives them much larger displays, too. I don't know why they do that stuff, but they do. Another thing is sorting, and again, you have sorting, and you can do it by drag and drop kinds of techniques here, where you take the column. Let's say I want to sort by Q date and Q time, and I put those over here on the right. And then let's say I want to move Q time down below. Let's say I want them descending, and now I am sorting by Q date and Q time. The other thing I could do is just click on a title, and then now I'm sorting by that. Right, so that's the other way to do that kind of thing. We do intelligent column formatting, where if the width of this is too narrow, then we'll adjust the scale and things like that. So all the same sorts of things you're used to in 3270. That's really all there. Now we do have tabular find. So if I do a F right on this tabular display and I search for syslog, right, it's going to find that, and I can go forward through those. If I'm actually browsing syslog, so then we have the regular browsing here, and I'm going to search for something like, I don't know, IEF 285. I happen to see that. So you can see there, it's very much like what you're used to in ISPS. And the same sorts of capabilities. And by the way, we support all the same keywords. So if you wanted to say find IEF prefix, then it would show all the places where IEF prefixes a word and that sort of thing. Okay. There's support for labels. So you can, set .a, and that just sets. That one said label not assigned. I'm not sure why .a. Oh, because it should just be A. No. Oh, it was. Oh, I'm doing a locate. Sorry. I hit dot to do it, and .a assigns it, label A assigned. And then if I'm somewhere else and I do locate to A, it'll take me to that label. Yeah, I had my commands backwards. Data set positioning, if you're in a multiple data set display, see if I can find one of these that has maybe a lot of data sets. This one seems to have a lot. This syslog seems to be a good one. So as I hit N, each of those is a separate data set. So I'm forward spacing through the data sets. I can back through the data sets, and the same is true for just regular job type work. It doesn't have to be this log, of course. Opera log is a little different. If you go to Opera log, now we're looking at times, right? So I can locate to say, let's see what happened at 5 o'clock, and I'm there. Basically the same exact command you'd use in 3270. Or you can drag this to a particular date and time and let go of it, and it shows you that kind of thing. So it's all time-oriented for that. Let's see. System commands, I already did some demo on that. I'll just do a little bit more just so you can see that. If you do issue a system command and you want to issue it again, this up arrow recalls it. So this time I'm going to do D space T. Okay, and if I do a slash here, I do up, there's D space T, and there's DASM. I can't remember how many it saves, but it's quite a few. So those recalls are there. As far as resubmitting jobs goes, that's a big feature people use all the time in 32.7. Let me see if I can find one over here. I'll give JES 3 a little bit of use and see if I can find something that's not too something that's. I probably should have prepared for this a little bit more. I don't want to submit something that's going to mess something up. Okay, this will probably work fine right here. So if I have, oh no, not that one. Let me try something else. I don't want to submit that. That's an apply. All right, you know what? I'm not going to submit. I'm just going to go ahead and browse. So if I go into here and I do browse and I say browse JCL, then I get to see the original JCL with whatever the stream input was, and I can make whatever changes I'd like. So instead of this command or instead of this step, maybe I want to call that AS Manager X, right? And then if I right-click on this guy, down here, Submit Job, and then it would go ahead and submit the job and rerun this job. Now, I'm not going to actually do that because I don't really have anything out here that I can be sure. Oh, you know what I do have? I bet I have a list cat. Probably a list cat. Okay, there's a list cat. So I could probably do it with that. So I'm going to go ahead and browse JCL, and that only has a delete. That's fine. And I'm going to submit that job, and it's just going to go ahead and it tells you that job number, right? So now that job's out in the queue, and then we can go manage it the way we normally would, all right? Lastly, I want to just briefly show you how we can download data to your workstation. It's clear, obviously, that we already. Let me find something that's big enough to make it fun to do. So we have extract capabilities, right? The same kind of things you'd have on the mainframe, where you can extract the DASD, extract the sys out. We also do to Unix files. I think a lot of our competitors don't do that, so that's something that may be a EJES unique exclusive there. But be that as it may, as far as JES Web goes, we also have this download as choice, and you can download as text or as a PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and do a PDF, and I'm just going to take all the defaults. There's things here you can. One of the interesting things is carriage control interpreting. So normally, if you want to get something into a PDF, you would extract it to disk and then download it to your workstation and then use Microsoft Print to PDF or Adobe Acrobat or something to create a PDF. but you're not getting the benefit of the carriage control interpretation. But what we're doing here is actually interpreting the carriage control. So when we build this PDF, it should actually, and there's the name of it, it's the job and the job number, right? Then and I'm going to go ahead and open it with Acrobat. And it's not the biggest font going. Hopefully you could see it here. And actually what's happened is the carriage control, there was a page eject there, and so we had to go forward to the next page. So you could see that we built this PDF, and it has all of the, we're honoring the carriage control, and you could obviously take this PDF and do whatever with it you want. I'm not even sure what this is. Oh, it's an Arab job. So, yeah, we do, from time to time, do regular system programmer work. Anyway, I think that's probably as much of a demo as I really have time for today. And I wanted to leave enough time for any questions that might be being asked. So, and of course, those questions will be asked and answered live, even though this demo, if you recall, did take place just a couple days ago. So I'm going to go ahead and go up here to the questions page and make myself available to take your questions. Thank you very much.